Hello, good afternoon, members of the internet family. Long time no see, I know. I don't mean to neglect my YouTube channel, just sometimes things get out of hand and it's really hard to record videos. But anyway, I'm going back to my Sonic Generations Let's Play, and we got all the way through the Dreamcast era of side missions and Red Star rings, and now we have to do the modern stages. And the first one in the modern stages, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to do in this little, and oh yeah, the doppelganger race is all hidden in, yeah, in Crisis City. That's a funny thing about the, modern, side missions, is that they make it so hard to get to the gates for them. They get very complicated in how they set up the little hub world, so you can't just go straight to them. It would have been nice if there was a menu, however at the same time it is kind of fun to go through the little hub world as well, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. But what I am going to complain a little bit about is that, once again, we're at the doppelganger race. I don't know how many times I say that. The doppelganger race, it's fun, but it's just the same level we've already seen, so really not the most exciting side mission. But since I want to technically show off every side mission in the game, these doppelganger races are side missions, so they're gonna be here for all the rest of the parts. So there's that for you. So, Crisis City. It's from one of the most infamous Sonic the Hedgehog titles, Sonic 06. I already mentioned that in the original part, but when I do these side mission Red Ring collectathons, it's a lot easier to get all of my thoughts on said game out, because if you're just doing the modern and classic stages straight, you finish them pretty quickly. None of the levels in this game are particularly long. The only time I ever spent more than 10 minutes in a level was the first time I played Planet Wisp Modern. So most of the time these levels aren't too long. They get a little bit longer when you're trying to look for red rings, especially in Crisis City. Crisis City, the problem with the red rings, and you'll see that later on in this video, is that they're very difficult to get to. They're not hard to find, they're just kind of tricky to collect. So you'll definitely see that in a few minutes. And the thing about these doppelganger races, they never really get particularly more difficult. I think for just about all of these, the doppelganger might get a little bit closer to beating me each time, but I still don't think I've ever lost to the doppelganger. So it's just kind of a gimmick, you know. They may give you the illusion that you're racing against something, when really it's just a glorified time limit. I still really like that fake out they did with the sign. I still can't think of a game that has done that before, in the Sonic franchise at least. I know Mario has done that a few times, where you approach the flagpole and it disappears somehow, usually like a ghost level. But that's the first time I can remember Sonic faking you out with the end of a level. So, and I feel like that really should have been a checkpoint. There's sort of a lack of checkpoints sometimes in these later levels, and I can't catch every death in my editing. You know, and there's only so much editing I want to do for these sort of things, and you know, that's how it goes. Crisis City in the original game was honestly one of my least favorites to play through, because it took 4 load screens, I think, to, you know, play the entirety of a level, because when you get to a certain section, it'll actually have to interrupt your game and load. And another thing about Sonic 06's infamy is that it took so long to load anything. And each load screen was probably 15 to 25 seconds. So if all of those, like, 4 load screens were 25 seconds, it'd be 100 seconds. So that's over a minute and a half of just waiting with the controller in your lap to play a whole level. And, you know, what if you get to the end of the level and lose all your lives? You gotta do it all over again. So, and Crisis City wasn't the only one that had that many load screens. I think Kingdom Valley had that as well going on, along with a handful of others. What was kind of nice about Crisis City, though, is that I think, I could be mistaken, it's been a while since I've played Crisis City in the original form, but I believe you only play as Sonic in that one. What was weird about Sonic 06 is that it would change which characters you were playing as mid-level, just for like a section. Like you had to play as Knuckles for one section, you had to play as Tails for one second, and each hedgehog, like Shadow, Silver, and Sonic, all had a level where you'd have to play as a different hedgehog. You know, so it was kind of really weird. Like, you'd play the Sonic levels because you didn't want to play as Silver because he was slow and had a weird gameplay style. But then if you're playing, I think it was Kingdom Valley, you'd have to do a section as Silver anyway. So that wasn't too fun. This level I thought was really clever. I wish there were a few fewer obstacles for it, but in Sonic 3 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, you would get to bounce around the sign after the first level of a zone, and that was pretty fun. And when you defeated that first boss at the end of Act 1, the sign would drop from the top of the screen, and if you wanted to, you can jump towards it and bounce the sign around, and that would give you more points if that's what you're into for collecting Sonic games. And if you got it to bounce on the right point, it would get you a new item to use in the next zone. And then the Act 2 boss was, you'd save the animals from the capsule, just like the other games. And another thing about I call them mini bosses if they're in the first stage, is that those are usually just robots or something to do with the level. I think in Lava Ridge it's like a golem. No, that's Sandopolis, I think. But either way, it wasn't Dr. Eggman you were fighting in the first one. And then Act 2, it would be Dr. Eggman in one of his machines. So that's how I kind of came to the conclusion that those were the mini bosses, those first levels. But yeah, that one took a little while. These side missions, I like their ideas, but some of these side missions go on a little bit longer than they're worth. They're still fun. I'm not gonna knock them too much for that, but they seem to overstay their welcome sometimes. Like a good idea kind of gets overdone after a while. And then another thing that is kind of prolonging, collecting everything in the game, is that to get the artworks that each side mission gives you, it gets harder and harder to follow the music note around the hub world to collect said bonus. So that's a little bit nuts too. In this mission we're playing with Vector. He'll throw you certain places. You'll get a ton of air if you throw in the right place. This wasn't really, I don't know what this is really referencing to. I never played Knuckles Chaotix. I don't know if Vector can throw people in that one, but I know he didn't do that really in Sonic Heroes, where I have my most memories with Vector the Crocodile. But I guess he's always been like a powerful like root character, so it's not too unheard of that he'd have the ability to throw you in his team up. Like a lot of almost every major Sonic character has a mission where they team up with Sonic to get to the end of the level, and a handful of them have multiple levels that are like that. And you know what's funny is that we don't see Big the Cat in any of this game at all. I think someone found in like the files, like one thing I've never really gotten too into is looking at the actual files of the game and finding out what they might have cut. I leave that to the people who are really into doing that sort of thing. But I think I read somewhere that Big was planned to be in the game at some point, which a lot of people have mixed feelings about Big the Cat, so I suppose it's not too unheard of that they decided not to put him in the game, just because a lot of people actually really don't like him. I've never really been offended by Big the Cat. He's just like this dopey, cartoony character. And I didn't really care for playing him in Sonic Adventure, but I thought as a character he was like a kind of funny comic relief type thing. So I don't have any ill will towards Big the Cat. I wouldn't mind seeing him. But they decided to put Espio, Charmy, and Vector in the game, which are honestly their only major appearance with Sonic Heroes. I mean, I know there was Knuckles Chaotix, but that's a fairly obscure game. So in the Sonic universe, their only major showing was in Sonic Heroes, and Big the Cat had Sonic Adventure and Sonic Heroes. He even got into the Sonic and All-Stars racing game for the first one, not the second one. But, whatever. I'm not a huge fan of the Chaotix characters, except for Espio. I think Espio's kind of a cool character. And I like Vector because he has headphones, but as far as characters that I want to learn more about, I don't really care much for the Chaotix. Now, characters like Rouge the Bat, she works for the government and stuff like that. I think that's an interesting twist on an anti-hero. So I like Rouge the Bat. I wouldn't mind learning more about Rouge the Bat, but that's just me. This level is one of my favorites, actually. Well, it's one of my favorites as far as your reward for doing the level. Because the fire shield is very useful for if you're, red ring collecting in Crisis City or anything like that, because it makes you impervious to the fire pillars and some of the Iblis worms and Iblis, are they dogs or something? The Iblis spawns, basically. Sometimes they breathe fire, and with the fire shield, you won't get hurt by them. And those fire pillars can be some of the most what's the word I'm looking for? It stunts your progress whenever you get hit by one of those fire pillars so badly. So it's a great power up, and you get to buy it from the Omo Chow shop after completing this mission. And you also get sort of a, I guess we'd call it a air dash for classic Sonic when you have the fire shield, because if you double tap the jump button, you'll move forward whichever way you're going at a pretty fast speed. And it's useful for certain platforming segments, but it kind of can also screw you up a little bit if you're not careful, because sometimes when you're trying to make a jump, like I know I have a habit of hitting the jump button multiple times, and that could really mess you up in, well, more so in Sonic 3 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It would mess you up if you accidentally hit the button twice and dashed forward. This one doesn't do that as much, but at the same time, the levels aren't really made with it in mind, to be completely honest, so it can be a little bit hard to use the fire shield to its full advantage. And really, I mean, I think Seaside Hill has some fire that you can dodge and stuff like that, but Crisis City is more or less the only place you're going to be using that. So. And if I'm not mistaken, there's only one more side mission, then we'll get to go collect some red rings. This one is another ring time level, which I don't particularly mind. I guess ring time is kind of I don't get it. I don't know what it's referencing. It's kind of a new thing for Sonic Generations, and I don't mind new ideas, but ring time is just kind of a glorified invincibility power-up, and then they give you a requirement to have a certain amount of rings before you reach the end. And luckily, in Classic Sonic, you don't lose all your rings when you get hit, but you lose a decent chunk of them. And even with ring time helping you collect all of your rings, it can kind of mess up. And as you saw there, I used ring time to kill those enemies back there, but the rings immediately disappeared. It's some sort of glitch that happened, and I think I'm still gonna make it with the amount of rings I've been collecting, but that sort of thing sort of can mess you up if you're getting hit a few times and you're collecting the rings to get to the end of the level. So as far as how ring time works, I think it could have worked a lot better. I think what could have been fun is if you, instead of approaching the enemy with ring time and then bursting into rings, if you actually jump on them and then they turn into rings, I think that would give you a better chance to collect those rings, since sometimes when I activate ring time, I'm really nowhere near the enemy and I can't collect the rings that it drops. So, but what am I gonna do? It's a almost 5-year-old game now. It's not like they're gonna change anything for me, so whatever. Ring time's not super offensive anyway. But yeah, that was the last of the Crisis City Classic side missions. And then we just need to get the red rings and we're done with Classic Crisis City. And then we're really almost done. We'll have modern Crisis City side missions and red rings. And then 2 more zones. So that should be about 5 more videos of side missions and red rings, and then I'll probably look at the hard mode of boss battles. Each boss battle actually has a hard mode, so we'll check that out, and I'll go into more detail of the Homo Town shop, and then I can probably look at the 30-second trial. 30-second trial is great. Sort of semi-online competitive multiplayer, which is pretty fun. I got very addicted for a while. But before any of that, we have the Red Ring Crisis City Classic, and I actually didn't collect a single red ring on my initial playthrough of this for this Let's Play, so we're gonna have to collect all 5, as opposed to a lot of these ones where we're collecting 3 or 4, sometimes even just 2. Because the thing about Crisis City red rings, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but they're not difficult to find, but they can be difficult to collect. And a lot of them, if you don't collect them, before you see them, like if you're not on the right path and see them, you're not able to get to them, so you'll have to backtrack or even start over from a checkpoint in order to collect them. But it's not particularly difficult. I think it's going to be more difficult to collect all of the red rings in Rooftop Run. I think when I used to play this on Xbox 360, that was the only level I hadn't collected all of the red rings. So we'll have to see how that goes in the parts, but Crisis City, you can find them really easily. You just gotta make sure you go the right way to collect them. And for this run-through, I'm actually gonna probably use some of the hints, and in this section I really thought there was a red ring over there, but Evidently there was not, but so just ignore that part. But I don't know if I mentioned this in an earlier part, but the characters that you save from beating the stage initially and unfreeze them from their sort of state of time stopness or whatever. I don't know what you refer to that sort of state of being, but you can talk to them and they'll give you hints about where to find red rings and things like that. So that's pretty sweet. And I mean, if you're really stuck on where to find red rings, there's of course the internet. But if you want to just sort of stay in involved in the game for the entirety of your playthrough, those hints that they give you will probably be the way to go. But this is the PC version, so you most likely, if you're playing the PC version of the internet right there in front of you, I looked up a few red rings on there, but I think I've done a pretty good job of remembering where they are, because I did initially collect almost all of the red rings aside from a few levels when I played it on Xbox 360, and the area those are in, they didn't change, so they're in there. But I'll do a jump cut in a little bit. There's a upper route somewhere, yeah, right there, that you can take that'll lead you to a red ring, but you can't really get to it. I was trying to figure out a way to go back a little bit to try to collect it, but you kind of have to be going that way to collect that one, which is unfortunate. It's not necessarily easy to go back and forth between certain routes. Like, basically, entire sections, there's probably 3, sometimes 4 routes you can take for each section of the level, and you're kind of stuck in that section for the entirety of that part of the level. So, that's kind of the unfortunate part. And this part is the same way. You gotta make sure you're jumping towards those enemies to collect that red star ring. It's pretty easy to, if you're trying to go quickly, you're not going to collect that one because you'll probably go a different way and go right over it. I've actually spin dashed at the beginning of that section and just sort of missed it entirely. So, and that tornado, I decided to keep that part in because I don't think I showed off that tornado is a one-shot kill. It kind of can catch a lot of people off guard, but if you are in that section while that tornado gets to its larger point, then it'll be a one-shot. So definitely keep an eye on the background for this section, because yeah, when the tornado looks like that right there, you don't want to be in the middle of it. And there's a little bit of lack of checkpoints in this part of the level. I thought there should have been one, probably right before we saw that truck with the yellow spring on it. I thought there should have been a checkpoint, but what you gonna do about that, huh? And then we're almost to the end of the level. I think there were 2 red rings that I missed, so we'll jump cut to those right after I finish the level. You don't get your red rings until you actually finish the level, so that's when you get to keep them, after you finish the level. So we'll do that right here, and the signpost is not going to move again this time. It's not going to do the fake out thing. And then we'll just cut back in just a second to collect the last 2 red star wings. One of the ones is actually a trick one. In this section, the later part of the level, there's a lot of wind that will push Sonic along, like, one way or the other, and one of the red rings is hard to collect because it's sort of, if you time it wrong, you're gonna go off the side of the level and die. So I think that since I was losing a lot of lives already collecting the red rings, I avoided that one on the first go. And here, Blaze told me that there's a red star ring after the segment where we run down the building, and there it is right there. That's just the up route after going down the building that falls while you're running on it. And this one, I think, is right before the signpost disappears from you. So that's where they are. You know, it's I think you can get them all in one go, but it's tricky. So that's it for Crisis City Classic. I'll see you in the next part where we go to the modern stage. Thanks for watching.